In this video, I'm going to describe the use of formatter classes to format and present data in visual controls. There are 5 formatter classes in the Flex framework that are designed respectively to format data for currency, numbers, dates, and a couple of other types of data. The purpose of a formatter is to take a value that could be a string or could be a specifically typed value such as a number or a date, and return that value as a formatted string that is friendly to the eyes or makes sense to the user. To demonstrate these classes, I'm going to use an application called the Currency Converter. I've already built the basic part of the application, and I'm going to start by reviewing its functionality. The Currency Converter is a panel that contains a couple of labels and some data entry controls. There's a text input that allows the user to type in a dollar value, and then a numeric stepper control at the bottom of the panel that allows you to set the current value of a dollar in terms of euros. At the time of the recording of this video, $1 equaled 0.78 euros. And so when you run the application, by virtue of a couple of bindings, when the user changes either the number of dollars or the value of a euro, the value of the euro's equivalent is displayed on the screen. So the value of $100 is 78 euros. If the value of a dollar increases, the value of the euros increases, or if you change the value of the dollars that you want to convert, the result changes as well. Let's take a look at the code that's implementing this functionality. I'll go back to FlexBuilder and go to Source View, and then double-click on the editor window to expand it to full screen. The user interface consists of a panel wrapped around a few label controls. The text input control that accepts the number of dollars uses the restrict property to make sure that the user is only typing in numeric characters or the period. At the bottom of the application within the control bar, there's a numeric stepper that's allowing the user to set the number of euros. The ID of this control is euros input. By the way, the numeric stepper reflects its current value through its value attribute rather than through a text attribute. Notice that the step size property of the numeric stepper is set to 0.01. This means each time the user clicks the numeric stepper's up or down buttons, it will result in incrementing or decrementing the value by that amount. Finally, there's an MXML declaration of a number variable with an ID of euros. I'll scroll over a little bit so we can see the entire expression within the number attribute. It's a binding expression that executes a calculation, incorporating the dollars input control and the euros input control, and executing a type casting against the properties of these controls to make sure that they're each treated as numeric values. The syntax number, open paren, close paren around a value is a casting expression. It means take this value and turn it into a number. And then the asterisk is a multiplication operator. So no matter whether the user affects the input for the dollars or the numeric stepper for the euros, this binding expression will re-execute each time. And then the label control at line 13 is displaying the value of that euros variable through a binding expression. The reason this binding expression works is because when you declare a variable using an MXML tag set, such as the MXNumber tag, that variable is automatically bindable. Unlike in ActionScript, you don't have to explicitly mark it as bindable using a metadata tag. Now notice when I run the application that the value is represented correctly, but if I start making changes to the value in a way that it calculates a value with too many decimal points, for instance, or with a complex large value, that this value is not correctly displayed as a currency value. And that's what we're going to use a formatter class to change. Here's how you use a formatter class. I'm going to place the cursor right after the MXNumber tag. A formatter class is a non-visual component. And by convention, non-visual components are commonly declared above the visual components in an MXML application. I'll add a currency formatter class and give it an ID of CF, standing for currency formatter. The currency formatter class has a number of properties that you can use to affect its behavior, but for the moment I'm going to use it in its default behavior. Each formatter class has a format method. To execute a formatting operation, you wrap the format method around the value that you want to present. So now I'll go down to the label that's presenting the value of the euros variable, and I'll wrap it inside the currency formatter's format method. Whenever the euros variable updates, it will cause this binding expression to re-execute, and the formatted value will be correctly presented. I'll save the changes and run the application. And now notice that the euros is displayed with a dollar sign. That's because the currency formatter class's default currency symbol is the dollar. So I'll make a change to that. I'll come back to the code. I'm going to come down here to this label where I already have a euro symbol, and I'll copy it to the clipboard. Then I'll go back to the currency formatter, and I'm going to change two properties. First, the currency symbol, which I'll set to the euro symbol, and then the precision, which I'll set to a value of 2. The currency formatter's precision property affects the number of characters after the decimal. It doesn't affect rounding. There's actually a separate rounding property that you can apply to affect that. But that's enough for the moment to see the result. I'll save the change and run the application again, and you can now see that the value of euros is displayed using a euro symbol at the beginning of the string and the correct number of values after the decimal. But what if you want to change the characters that are used in the thousands and decimal separators? Well, in European currencies, this is what they do. They're opposite to what the United States dollar uses. So once again, the currency formatter anticipates this challenge and provides the following properties. I'm going to change the decimal separator 2 to a comma and the thousands separator 2 to a period. Once again, I'll save and run the application. And notice that the comma is now being used into the decimal position. And if I add the number of dollars, you'll see that the period is being used as the thousands separator. You can use any of the formatter classes you need by declaring them using MXML, setting their properties, and then applying the formatter class through the format method wrapped around the value that you want to format. Again, there are 5 formatter classes that are a part of the pre-built Flex framework, the Flex class library. You can investigate those by looking at the help system. I'll go to the currency formatter class and press Shift F2 to open up the help system for that class. Notice that the currency formatter class is extended from a superclass called formatter. And if I click into the formatter class, it shows me that its subclasses include currency formatter, date formatter, number formatter, phone, and zip code formatter. Each of these classes has its own set of rules and properties that you use to affect the way it formats data. For instance, the date formatter class is sort of a special case class. It takes a value, which is either a date or a string that can be parsed as a date, and returns a formatted date. You set the format of the date that you want to present using the format string property described at the bottom of the screen here. And if you want to see exactly how to present formatted strings, go to the Properties section of the date formatter, from there to the Format String property, and you'll find extensive documentation for each of the patterns that you use in presenting a date value. So that's a quick look at how you use formatters. I'll be using formatters in other videos, and you'll see some specific examples, for instance, of the date formatter class when I get into the use of the data grid control in a later chapter.